For my online classes, I really don't have a lot of interaction and collaboration, but I did make it a requirement for one of my early projects that they consult with another student in the online class. So in this case here, the student turned in the assignment, and it says that this other student, Jaden, suggested a few things for their art project, their Photoshop art project, and I asked that they do two consultations, and that would get them started. Because one of the things I think with some of the classes that the online classes that they don't know each other. So this was a requirement. They have to at least get to correspond with and work with at least two students. And I find that once it starts going on like this, then they begin to email each other or and develop more friendships in that way informally. And I don't ask them to do much else besides that because a lot of them work or they have really strange schedules. And so to do things beyond this, I thought was asking too much at this point. Now, as far as the course learning outcomes, it's very clearly stated in my syllabus that the students download. How do I move this? Right here. So demonstrate an understanding of the technology and vocabulary of computer art, and so on and so on and so on. This is the learning outcomes. They're to use a program called Photoshop for these to gain these skills. Now, what I do is each lesson takes a student from the very beginning to a very sophisticated at the end to a very sophisticated understanding of the program itself. There's gaining of skills, but there's also a whole component that I always utilize, which in every lesson includes learning art concepts, theories, and best practices. So a lot of all of my lessons are layered in order to address different kinds of learning outcomes. For example, in the very first lesson, what I have here is just teaching them a very basic introduction to Photoshop, how to make simple lines, but I also always include something about art theory. So we go here, we talk about um, Photoshop, but if we go down a little more, how to use lines, I discuss, oh, scroll, cool trick, next list. I discuss lines in terms of art theory. So this addresses conceptual concerns that our students have to understand beyond just like the monkey pushes the button thing to get things to work. Course design. What I have decided, besides being kind of not sure about how Laulima works, but what I decided was that I should make it as simple as possible in terms of the layout and navigation for it because they have enough problems working with Photoshop. So here in the overall course design, what I have is I always have a basic home page. I usually put current students' artwork up there that I think is really fun or interesting. Announcements are on the right, and I have just a couple links here. The most important things that I weeded out and chose. So it's a very simple navigation system. They go to resources. I have the lessons and stacked from beginning, and each time there's a new lesson, and it's on the bottom. I also post students' works that have been graded. Even I like try to pay attention to little things like when I upload my HTML files, I make sure they're in order. The things that they don't need to look at are on the bottom, like the images folder and the CSS style sheet. So it's very logical for them. The simpler the better, I always feel, because the software that they have to use, Photoshop, is hard enough as it is. They don't need too many bells and whistles. As far as accessibility, it gets into some lesson content, but I do have some video and animated stuff as well as images. But that's about it. I mean, Photoshop is a visual software. Students have to be able to at least see things and read things. So, I can't get more accessible than that. Okay, so as far as specific learning materials, if we go to here, I what I always do is I try to include in each lesson, as I had mentioned earlier, some theory, art theory, such as type theory, in this case here, um, aesthetic concerns, and then I get on to a practicum where they use Photoshop to learn a new technique, a new tool, a new concept. I have also to address the fact that some students have a really hard time reading. I have been including more and more animations, such as this thing here, the animation of type tool. So it duplicates, where'd it go? It duplicates what I've been talking about here. So there's always duplication whenever it's not showing up on this computer. There's always like whenever I talk about something, I have some kind of animation. Oh, there it goes. A little slow. So here's a little animation of how to, what am I doing here? How to use the type tool. Yeah, okay. So click on that, do that. And they can watch this, or if they don't want to wait for the download, because sometimes the files are really big, they can skip it because everything that's in some animation or video is also written, and there are pictures. So I work with students via the written word, via pictures, and via these little animations like this. Okay, let me go back to this thing here. Oh no, not this one. Type. Okay. So then at the very end, I always describe they should. Oh, I get into perspective here, which is kind of fun. But at the very end of each lesson, I I'm trying to get to the end of this lesson. Okay, it's a long lesson. So I always have a separate page where they see what is expected of them. Okay, and have student examples. As far as learner support throughout the duration of the class, what I try to do is that if something new happens or I have to add something else or whatever, I put it in the general announcements in the announcements section of Laulima for the students. So, for example, Geek Day is coming up, and I just put that as a special announcement, and I said I'd give you extra credit if you go there and you tell me that you went, or you have some kind of way to show me that you did go to the Geek Day, which was a really cool event for the students. I got to meet just one student there, but that one was great. The other things I do, which I can't really show here, is I have office hours and I make myself available for one-on-one. And I have one student who's been coming to my weekly office hours like almost weekly for the past 2 or 3 months. She's having a hard time. And so I find that sometimes one-on-one with the students really helps. And this I've done that before where they have particular problems in a certain project and they just come down to campus. I also make a note in my syllabus about how they can find help at the Learning Resource Center and other places on campus. And I also make my private email available to all of my online students so that they can get to me right away. I always check my own personal email daily. So if they feel that they really need to get hold of me very quickly, they can through email. I also give them my personal phone number, and so far, knock on wood, no one's really abused it. It's been a great way for me to get in instant contact with the students, and so it's been good. It's been good so far. The latest innovation I have, I mean, I try to keep my interface and everything really simple for this because the Photoshop software itself is pretty hard. But I've been doing animations and videos for the students, and I include some
Okay,
audio,
so I did a little bit before
and I've been
into
having a
that,
whole lot of fun
and
with
then
this.
on top of
Kind
that,
of ham in me comes out.
I go
But I found that
back to my
students
background
really
copy
enjoy it, and they, in fact,
right here,
they
and
laugh and
I
they have
choose
this
my
kind of
lasso
a
tool.
really fun time
Hopefully it has a thread
um,
of about 3
going
pixels.
through some of my
Alright,
amateur
this little
audios because
temporary
sometimes like my
indigo
dog will
I'm
start
going
barking in the
to
background and some other
enhance a
things,
bit.
and they just like it because it's just kind
Very
of
roughly
corny
because
sometimes.
I'm trying to do this real quick.
And I
I'm
sometimes I
gonna
even make mistakes, and I just keep
hold the
going,
front edge
and you know
there.
they laugh at my
Maybe a
mistakes. They
little bit.
realize I'm only human.
Kind of
So
like top here.
it helps to make
There.
things a lot more informal
Got it.
and not as
Paste.
stiff
So I have this part
and
here in
real
front,
tight.
obviously. So when I turn the eyeball
So
on,
I'm talking. I'm talking.
just like
Okay,
from
let me get out of
from
here. Yeah.
the
So how transformational is this? Well, we can start from the beginning. A lot of students have never used Photoshop before. They come out with really wonderful first projects like this. Wonderful, colorful, interesting, and very creative, but this is what they do. They start with just learning how to work with lines. Through the class, they begin to work with photographs, images, shapes, all kinds of things, color, and they end up, one of their last projects is designing their own website, and they learn about some HTML. They've gone through animation. They learn how interfaces work, and so it's just pretty incredible. Many students have emailed me impromptu on their own saying how much they enjoyed the class because they learned so much and they didn't realize how much fun it would have been. So these are actual working websites that students have made on their own.